Good day, my family. Welcome. And this is the Big Daddy Football Corner. Igama lami nguSimanga, also known as Big Daddy. Bafethu, about a week ago, I posted a video of my Orlando Pirates squad analysis. And that was part one of that particular video. I deliberately waited, for the COSAFA Cup to just go at least to the final level for me to be able to see all the players and see if there's anything or anyone that I think Orlando Pirates needs to keep an eye on. So now this is the video now that we are moving from part one. Now we are moving into part two, which is the last video. Let's recap a little bit. In part one, we covered 5 positions. We covered the goalkeeper, the right back, left back, center back, and the central defensive midfielder, which I mentioned that I possibly want Orlando Pirates next season to be a CDM that sits, a destroyer, a screener, somebody that does not move away from the back four, right? But subsequent to the video that I did on part one, Orlando Pirates released a statement and they told the nation and the fan space that they've decided to release Umako as well as Umunyane. I don't want to talk much about those two players, because if you remember in the video that I did, they were my third choice in terms of the right back position Umunyane, the left back position Umako for next season, right? But also, it's a lesson to Orlando Pirates management, to say they really need to wake up and evolve with the game, because there is no way you can have players that you still want to keep, and then you come around 6 months before their contract end, and when you have not renewed the contract, but you still want to keep those players. And I think those players, Orlando Pirates wanted them. It's just that they've already signed with Kaizer Chiefs. That's where I'm sitting, and that's what I'm thinking. And they mentioned as if they are releasing them, but in actual fact they could not. Those players have already signed. And it's a lesson to Orlando Pirates to say, wake up. To think that even DANKO has still not signed a contract after having played about 91% games of Orlando Pirates last season. For me, it's a big worry. Let's recap. In my lineup, based on the fact that the 2 players released, we will change it a little bit. The first choice remains Shayine Buthelezi. Number 2, Dladla. Those are the 3 players. Remember the rule: 33 men squad, 3 players per position. And we don't exceed that one, right? Let's go to the right back position. Diano van Rooyen. And then Maturudi, the second choice, and in this instance, now is going to be the third choice. But there's a twist that we'll talk about on that position as we go along. Then on the left back position, Letlapa was somebody that I said Orlando Pirates needs to go for. Hoto became the second, and now Madiba is the third choice in that instance. Center backs, Nda is the first choice, and Oliver Torre is also the other pairing, and Usibise and Sesane are the ones that sits there. Umolo Isane, we bring him because he's a free player. Ogi, we let him go for that position. And if you look into that, we have got 5 players, which means already we are carrying a position going into central midfield. Then in the CDM role, Mbogazi is moved into that CDM role. Sihlenduli is the second choice. Makaula is the third choice into that position. We let go of Omosele, and I did mention the reason for it, right? So, and then in terms of how I want Orlando Pirates, maybe in the next video, once we talk about the tactics and the tweaks that I want Orlando Pirates to do and change. But for now, all I'm going to say is I want Orlando Pirates to play with a second striker. It's going to be a 4-2-2 it's going to be a 4-2-2 system, a formation, or some can say it's a 4-1-4-1, depending on how you look at it. But I want the second striker to be always close to the main striker and beyond, and in some games play as twin strikers. You know, that is the twist, but we will talk about that in detail, family, when we get into that stage where we need to then start talking about the tactical tweaks that I want. Now, let's go to the positions. Holding midfielder role, another video that I'm going to do just to explain central midfielder roles or central midfielder positions in terms of how they differ. Because you can have a player that can one game play as a CDM, next game play as a holding midfielder, next game play as a box-to-box midfielder, next game play as a central attacking midfielder, next game play as a deep-lying player maker, but he's playing in midfield. And it's for you to have an eye to see that in this particular game, this is where this player, the coach wants him to play. So I will just call it for now a holding midfielder role and separate it from the CDM role, right? So for me, it's no brainer. Talent Mata stays. He has played 71% of Orlando Pirates matches. You know, Patrick Maswanga stays. Kabelo Dlamini stays. Simpiwe Silepe, the diamond, the newfound, holding midfielder for Orlando Pirates. Top player. That player next season, he is going to be counted amongst the best, central midfielders in the country. Kim Vudi, we keep him. And then we loan Urasebocha, we loan Cameron Dancing, and then obviously we release Undlondo as well as Ubaloni, because I don't think they are going to play, especially with the new players coming in. Azola Nchobeni is also another one that guys, I'm not saying these players must be released because they are bad players. They are simply being released simply because they won't play in the current, because if you have Umbata, Umasonga, Ukabelo, Selepi, Ukim Vidi in that, where is all the other players are going to play, right? But now let's go on. Then in my wish list, Bafethu, in this central midfielder role, for me is first one is Ulik Leroux. I think he can play that hold midfielder role perfectly, but I don't think Orlando Pirates is going to go for him because he will need to spend a lot of money to bring him back into the country. But a player that I was, as much as I noticed how good he is, but when he was switching to the right back position, Kosafa, Puso Ditejane, I sat and I said, wow. That for me, guys, is my wish list, because that player is an Orlando Pirates a profile model, a ball playing player. He's versatile, and this is the twist that I was saying. Instead of going for Umatuludi, I will say Orlando Pirates go for Puso Ditejane, simply because he is the modern type of a right back that even modern football is moving towards, where his starting position might be right back, but then his dynamic role becomes a number 10. Where he makes more underlapping runs, and he hits boxes, and Upuso has the energy, the stamina, the endurance, the agility, and the intelligence of being able, to move from box to box intelligently. So, and for me, that is what Orlando Pirates have been looking for a right back in all this. But again, the reason why it has not worked with the other players is because when he bombs forward, the other players, they don't set up in a way that when possession is lost, they are able to then to also have a rest defense that is able to cover him. That has been the biggest challenge. That's the twist in my then a profile of players that fits the Orlando Pirates model. And I want Orlando Pirates to keep monitoring those players. Izoma Sidi Nemtangela. Even though the Orlando Pirates have already signed him, I'm not going to talk about that at the moment because it hasn't been confirmed. Hape Moralo, another Orlando Pirates kind of central midfielder. Strange enough for me, Umihlali Mayambela, I still think that he's a player that can play that role of a central midfielder, not as a winger. For me, that boy is more of a holding midfielder than he is, or even a central attacking midfielder than he is a winger. Gabriel Amato, 18 years old, Cape Town City, a central midfielder. That boy is another diamond. Khumalo Butsaka, another player that I honestly think that he is an Orlando Pirates a kind of a player. Now let's go to the wingers, right? I'm not going to classify them and say, who's left and right at the moment. Mfokeng, no brainer, he stays. Nkota, no brainer, he stays. Saleng, no brainer, he is, Orlando Pirates breadwinner, he stays. And for me, we need to bring Peko Gilberto. There is no way Orlando Pirates can spend 10 million on a player and we just let go that particular player and so much investment. The last time Orlando Pirates spent so much money, bringing players, when was the last time you had Orlando Pirates spending 10? So I want Orlando Pirates to bring that Gilberto, but he must play a different role. You shouldn't expect him to play as a typical winger. The role that suits him is an inverted winger. And playing as a second striker. And one of the many reasons that I want Orlando Pirates to switch into that system. For me, Otladisa goes, and Tusomoleleki, because we have not seen much of him. We have heard how good he is. We can loan that particular player. For me, players that I want is that position of wingers. I want Orlando Pirates to go for two players. One, a right-footed winger and a left-footed winger. That one is critical for me because when Saleng is not there and we want to use a typical winger with speed on the left side, we have been found wanting. I'm going to talk about where I'm moving. Unkota in this instance as well is somebody that we keep, but I want him to alternate in some games, play as a left winger, as a right winger, in some instances play as a second striker, as a center forward. For me, that is his best role, and that's where his most attributes are, where he's able to play behind the striker. He's able to use his speed, and his ability to score crackers outside the box. So that's what. But the two wingers that I want Orlando Pirates to look to buy. Number one is Daniel Msendani. If they don't get him, go for Oswin. The reason for that is Daniel, I've watched him for the past 3-4 seasons at Galaxy in Botswana, and the one season that has been. What I've loved them the most is the fact that he's been very, very consistent. Every time you watch him, same performance, same energy throughout 90 minutes. For me, again, is attitude into the game and how he has remained consistent. The other thing that also I like is that he provides you the option to become a second striker, because he's got those striker instincts. He's got the speed that we need from Orlando. He's got the power, to attack the final at pace. He also got goals in him. So that is it. Aswin, for me, Oswin Apolis has proved in the national team that you moved him, along quality players. He is a marvel to watch. The reason people are looking at stats of what he's doing is doing at his current club at Polokwane City is because he does not, with all due respect, he doesn't have the same quality that you will find at Orlando Pirates. That's why in the national team he shines, because all around him is good quality. And then when he comes in, he becomes a monster. And those are the two players on the right hand side. Orlando Pirates can choose there. On the left hand side, and I know people are going to come for me, it's either you go for a gift links. People have said, no, he plays as a left wing back. The advantage of getting him is he can play multiple positions, which is what every club's dream is, to have players that can play multiple. When Orlando Pirates wants to switch and play with a back three, he can play as a left or a right, because he can use both feet. He's got speed for days. He's got goals in him. And you can move him and say, play him left winger. He can use his left foot inside, and shoot. And if you don't get him, go and get Pesita. You are going into Champions League, right? You are bringing a massive player that doesn't just come, and provide just qualities, guidance. Is the fact that he has played overseas. This is exactly influence that Benny McCarthy had when he joined Orlando Pirates. And this is what Pesitao brings. So it's either you bring Pesitao or you bring Ukif Links. Other players that fits the model of Orlando Pirates, that Orlando Pirates needs to monitor, because they have the capability, to play for Orlando Pirates because of the strength that they have. Kabelo Khositsile, I know they said Orlando Pirates have signed him. I'm not going to talk about him because it has been announced as yet. Tsepang Moremi is another one. I'm talking about left-footed players, in this instance. Then on the right-hand side, you have Keletso Makhalwa. His numbers are crazy. You cannot sit here and tell me that in your mind you don't think, because that boy, you give him two strikers in front of him, he will create goals for you, and Orlando Pirates will score a lot of goals with him being present. You also look at another player that people are sleeping on is Usiviwe Makidikiti, the left-footed boy. I think he's 19 years old. He plays for SuperSport. That boy is class, guys. He's got the speed. He can dribble even, he can a springbok. He's got the agility. He's got a sweet left foot. And he can, that boy can bowl. And for me, is one that Orlando Pirates needs. I'm not saying sign, monitor. Is an Orlando Pirates, a kind of a player. Jody Lee Ashin. From Cape Town City. We've all seen him in the Africa Cup of Nations. What an incredible player. You play him as a winger with that speed, with that finishing that he has. All right, guys, you have a player there. Then there's one player I saw in the COSAFA Cup, guys. Cristiano Razafima Nana. He's about 18 years old. Guys, believe me when I tell you this, he is going to be one of the biggest stars from the African continent. Give him 3 years. We will be about him, and you will come back to this video and tell me that you said it. He's got class. He's got speed, guys, and he's got amazing acceleration. He gets out, of the zone with pace. He is brave. He attacks you, in front of you as a defender and confronts you. He's got a big heart, guys. Watch out for that boy. He plays for Mauritius, if I'm not mistaken, and he wears jersey number 7, and probably that's why he's called Cristiano. That is a player that Orlando Pirates needs to monitor, because for me, you monitor him this season and make sure that every 3 months there is a scout that goes and watch him. Next season you bring, because that player you are going to eat nicely in terms of getting him into Europe. That player is a Europe type of a player. For me, he is a realm fucking, but at the moment he's still raw, and that's what I like about my wingers. That boy is class, guys. He is class. Please just go on Google and look at him. In terms of strikers, for me, you keep Mabasa. He played most of the games. You keep Makhopa. I'm going to explain where I'm moving Makhopa's role into. And then you decide what you want to do with Urediopane. Because for me, Urediopane, if you keep him, you have to play him. Again, also, when you play him, don't limit him to want him to play him as a holding striker. Because in the COSAFA Cup, look at the goal that he scored, in the semi-final. He showed that he can play in the shoulder of the defender. He's got a burst speed, he gets out, get off with his speed. He can play in between the defenders, and that is where Orlando Pirates, we are not using him correctly. We want him to hold all the time. We are not using all other his attributes. But I want him that if Orlando Pirates keeps him, they play him. They don't let him sit in the bench and do nothing. For me, Uzakelele Pasa, guys, will always remain the player I would want to keep Orlando Pirates. Simply because out of all the strikers, he's the only striker that has got the lightning speed and pace to play, or when you are playing a high line and you want him to exploit the space in front of the last line and the goalkeeper. And in some games, that opportunity opens up when you've got teams that play high. And you need that profile to always be present. But I honestly think that Rediopane can play that role. He has the speed. It might not be the same, but he has the speed to play that role. But Orlando Pirates have always wanting him to play as a holding a striker, and I don't understand. A player that Orlando Pirates needs to buy at all costs is Wonderboy Makhubu. Because what Wonderboy can do is he can do what Mabasa does. He can do what Makhopa does, and do more. For me, he ticks all the boxes to be at some point being called a complete striker, because he is an animal in you know, when you went on 1v1, especially aerially, with power, with strength, with speed. You know, he can score goals. He might not be as clinical finisher and classy finisher like Umabasa, but that's something that can be developed. But for me, there is one player I wish and pray that he joined Orlando Pirates, not because he's the best striker in the PSL. He's the profile of a striker that Orlando Pirates lacks, in my own view. Now, if you look at my wish list, guys, I've got many. Lassine Sinayoko, Senegal, a striker. He plays, you know, in France. I know Orlando Pirates is not going to bring that player. I'm saying I'm dreaming. Then there's Mahowet Bangura, you know, MC Alger striker. I think he's about 21. Guys, that is another next biggest player in the, because he has this zeal and will and power to be able to, he's short, but he's got speed and power and score goals. And for me, it is his attitude into the game. He has this nagging attitude. Lega le striker se Shalulile, striker se Santos. He's got that in him, but he's lethal. He might look short, but he can also score goals using his head. Watch out for him. Prin Chueza, speedy striker. That is another one that we need to look at and monitor. And I think he fits the Orlando Pirates model. You get that player. For me, guys, you can let go Lepasa. You can let go Radio Pani. You know, because for me, he's even much better into what they do. You know, he does it better. I'm still to watch carefully if Clement Mzizi as well as Prince Dube will fit the model of Orlando Pirates, because I'm not really sure as yet, because we need more of a striker that is more complete to always change the way. That's why sometimes Umabasa gets frustrated in some cases, because he becomes a lone striker, and now when balls are played in between, he doesn't have the pace to run. You know, and that's why I'm saying I still need to watch, but that's another cream. But again, it's wish list, guys. But profiles that fits Orlando Pirates model that we need to watch and monitor. Tandole Tungwenya, saw him the Kosafa Cup. Yambona Peter Shalulile is a younger version of Peter Shalulile. And he's more clinical than Peter Shalulile. Again, there's one thing, guys, I'll always say in strikers. I want to see you smelling where the goal is going to be. I also want to see your face in terms of wanting to play and being hungry to chase for every ball. He is a master of playing the shoulders, master of the ball runs. Whenever the other players have space, he opens the gap and let them play. Monitor the ball, Orlando Pirates. He's about 22 years old. Utenan Zamovic, I cannot mention him, not mention him in this video, because people have spoken a lot about him. But he's only been in the PSL for 6 months. And I don't want Orlando Pirates to only sign a player for 6 months. I want Orlando Pirates to spend an entire year watching a player and saying, these players that I'm saying, monitor them. If I was Orlando Pirates, I was going to send a scout every 3 months to watch the player and come with a report and say this is where the player is. And I want to see that, and also then the next time I send a different scout, you know, and I monitor the player, the next season I know that I'm buying, because all my 5 scouts or 6 scouts that I've sent, you know, in every 2 months or 3 months have come back with the report that this player fits the model of Orlando Pirates. And for me, Zamovic, as good as he be, he has not been tested over a long season. It's only been 6 months. And for me, I want Orlando Pirates to run away from signing a player because he has done only good in 6 months, or he has played one good game and then all of a sudden we must go sign. So that is where I sit, Mapagania. And if we then go, Mapagania, and we look now, my final lineup for Orlando Pirates next season, right? Bearing in mind that you are playing with 2 strikers, but one plays behind the other, you know, in the system. So you've got to Shine starting, because you've got Shine starting with Butelezi as a second choice. You have Udiano Van Rooyen starting, and then you have either Matuludi or Puso Tichejane as your number 2. You have on the left back Ule Kapa starting, and then you've got Hoto as your number 2. You've got Unda pairing with Utore next season. And then in the bench, you have Usbisi, as an option. You have Umoloisane as another option. You've got Usesane as another option of the second pairing in that. Defensive midfield, you've got Mbogazi starting as your CDM, Unduli as a second choice. In the left wing, you've got Usaleng starting as your first choice. And then you've got Umaswangai playing there. People are going to say, why are you playing as a winger? Go watch his heat map the entire season. He has been playing in the inside right channel every single game. The only thing you need when you play him there is for your right back to be clever enough to understand that he needs to make overlapping runs. And when you are playing with a Saleng who plays more on the touchline, you want your right back to make underlapping runs, which is where Pucho Titsedane is a master, right? And then you also have in front of them as another holding midfielder that is allowed to go forward and take shots outside the box. You've got Tumbata, you've got Silepe, you've got Kim Vudi in that particular role. Left, you've got Umfokeng, to play into that role. Then you've got Sendani, to play into that in that particular role. You've got Gilberto as an option as well. And then also the nice thing about it, Sendani and Gilberto can also play as a second striker. As I said, you need to have players that can play multiple positions. Behind them next season, you start with Umakopa or you play with Unkot. And then as a 9 next season, you play Mabasa, you've got Makhubu as an option, you've got Radio Pane as your second option, depending on what you decide to do. And for me, ladies and gentlemen, is my squad for Orlando Pirates next season. DANKO, if there's anything or anyone that I've missed, please come and let me know. DANKO Buffett.